Hey, yo, it's good, everyone. Twisted here with the Opener Sorcery, and today I want to go ahead and talk about the phrase that you likely have heard before if you come from Abrahamic background, Jewish, Christian, even Islam, but it is the phrase of I am that I am. The original Hebrew for the phrase being Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. Now, for those who are not necessarily aware what the source and origin of that is a phrase that comes from the Hebrew Bible, or the Old Testament of the Christian Bible, what have you, in the book of Exodus, and in particular, chapter 3, verse 14, right? This is where Moses is going ahead and talking to the angel of the Lord through the burning bush, and pretty much being told of the mission statement. Hey, look, Moses, go ahead and free your people from the evil clutches of the Pharaoh, oppressing them and all of that sort of thing. Lead your people to, greener pastures, in a sense. And obviously, the Exodus story in of itself, you can check out for yourself at large. However, the original statements and phrasing of this, I have the verse here, and once again, Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, you can read the rest of it, and so on and so forth on your own time, but it says, And God said unto Moses, I am that I am, and he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. So in that sort of sense, it is God revealing its nature unto Moses. And when we hear I am that I am, right? What the hell does it mean? What exactly is it that we can take away from it in a modern day and age, right? And, not only just for for anyone who's religious, trying to understand God, trying to understand that sort of perspective from, I would say, an exoteric point of view, but also for us as well from an esoteric point of view, right? And I'll go ahead and I'll get into that right now, actually. So to talk about, you could say, an attempt, however, I would say gimmicky of an attempt it was back when this particular documentary came out. It was actually a book and then turned into an accompanying film. That is the book and documentary The Secret, which goes ahead and, for those who are not necessarily aware, but it is rather infamous, is all about the law of attraction, the very infamous law of attraction, and manifesting things into your life, whatever it may be. Going ahead and utilizing the power inside of you, your ability to bring forth things into your own existence and into your world. So when it comes to that, right, the whole thing about The Secret is taking that phrase of I am that I am from that conversation, and the Hebrew God Yahweh, going ahead and revealing nature of itself unto Moses, pretty much going ahead and trying to, alter it slightly. And you want to know all it does is go ahead and alter it and try to change context? It goes in and puts a damn comma right after the word at. So instead of I am that I am straight through, it's I am that, comma, I am. And with that right there, it's trying to denote, let's do a visualization. Let's go ahead and just think about it imaginatively, right? You're, sitting in a room. Well, no, better yet. No, I have a better one. So, say, for example, you're, window shopping, right? You're window shopping, and you happen to see, something advertised, right? You happen to see something advertised of oh, hey, look, what? Football player, has, a particular sort of clothing line, right? Or some sort of celebrity, it doesn't matter what, but some sort of person has something out there, right? And you point your finger at that, being a little kid or whatever age, and saying, oh yeah, I want to be like that guy. Back in the day, if you were to go to Foot Locker and you see the Jordan shoe, and maybe you might see a picture of Michael Jordan, and, then you want to be like Michael Jordan, and all that sort of thing. So you point at the picture, and in terms of how it is utilized within the context of the law of attraction manifestation from The Secret, you'd be like, I am that I am. And thus, going ahead and trying to put yourself into that shoes, trying to go ahead and visualize, trying to embody that, right? In some way, shape, or form, making a statement of intent, right? And I would say completely different, or, a good deal away from the original statement of intention, which is just talking about existential, right? Just being existential and of itself, like, hey, look, like, I just exist, and there's nothing else to it in the original sort of context, right? And obviously there's more of a deeper understanding, a deeper, comprehension that you attain through coming to know thyself, coming to recognize within yourself who you are, what your, spiritual journey pertains to, what you are here on this earth for, and, your journey throughout life, and all these sorts of things, right? So, in that sort of sense, that is the nature of I am that I am. That you exist, and that, God exists, is the Alpha and the Omega, another, usual sort of trope associated based on a phrase from the Bible. But still, it is just about the existential nature of oneself and recognizing that, to whatever depth of comprehension you have, that, you're existing. And, as you come to understand yourself better, you realize, oh, it's not just I'm breathing, as, Mr. Schmidt, 46 years old, and, I've been here for a while, and then that's pretty much it, and you're a person. That there's a lot more inside within yourself and within the whole of existence and all that sort of thing. It takes time, and obviously at different points, with the open sorcery, on the YouTube channel, just conversations, having people and all that sort of thing, right? Like, there's many different ways, different levels, different tiers of comprehension, different avenues, different ways of getting to that fundamental understanding. But, it is all about coming to realize and recognize and have that connectedness with everything, or have a notion of that connectedness at some point or in some nature. And something that is not necessarily particularly tied to the phrase I am that I am, but I felt like is worthy of mentioning, is that when it comes to the Hebrew language, right? There are about 22 characters, 22 letters within that language, and all of them very much are tied into God. They're tied into the nature of God or aspects of God and all that sort of thing. And, if you're into magic or, Kabbalah or gematria or anything of the sort, then you'll likely, have it presented to you of, what, maybe I should go ahead and look into Hebrew and learn it, or have a rudimentary understanding of it. But one of the words in there, and I'm going to mispronounce it most likely, and because I honestly myself do not necessarily know Hebrew, but it is Yam, or I am, and that, and I am, and that right there is denoting the element of water. it is associated to the element of water. Now, why do I feel like going ahead and talking about this? Well, just fall for a moment. The reason why is because the element of water, right? That is, from the primordial waters, everything within this earthly existence came, right? In the manner of how things came about. We were talking about the book of Exodus and the Bible, the Old Testament, what have you, in the book of Genesis, the whole 7-day creation story as we all remember it by, El or the Elohim from the original Hebrew, right? But in any case, it is the general notion that the primordial waters existed before the earth and all of that, right? So the vastness, the vast oceanness of existence, the vast oceanness of consciousness, that is God, right? And all that sort of thing, spreading and permeating throughout not only just existence, but non-existence, right? And for the aspects and things that we cannot comprehend at present, and that we cannot even verbalize, or it is trivial and inaccurate to verbalize, even in my doing so. But alas, that element of water, I think that particular Hebrew word helps, gain further understanding and just bring some food for thought, additional food for thought, and all of that. But yes, it helps encapsulate the fundamental nature that God, using that particular term, but of course you can use other verbiage like source or higher self, or a variety of different ways and means of looking at everything, the multiverse, the universe, to whatever extent that you are aware of different levels, tiers, degrees of consciousness, everything and nothing, so on and so forth. It is ever expansive, and it is ever fluid, it is ever connected. It is all within one another, but at the same time, it is all within one another. It all is with, each other, all the atoms, that with the elements of water and touching and all that sort of thing. And also, since I just went ahead and mentioned the atomic level, I think it's honestly a good segue to go ahead and talk about, so this interconnectedness, right? Actually, before I get to that, I do want to go ahead and mention something else, yes. So I'll get back to the whole segue of the atom at the moment, but in a moment. But also, another thing that I thought is worthy of bringing up is the notion of talking about phrases that are infamous with I am in it, right? Rene Descartes' I think, therefore I am, which I believe in Latin is cogito ergo sum. And I probably butchered that pronunciation, but oh well. And in any case, when it comes to this sort of statement, I just figured, I'm just going to go ahead and poach a paragraph from Wikipedia to give the rudimentary sort of, what that is all about, right? Truth be told, it doesn't take a rocket science to go ahead and understand I think, therefore I am, but if you need a little bit extra understanding, you need a little bit explanation, here we go. Descartes' statement became a fundamental element of Western philosophy, as it purported to provide a certain foundation for knowledge in the face of radical doubt. While other knowledge could be a figment of imagination, deception, or mistake, Descartes asserted that the very act of doubting one's existence served, at minimum, as proof of the reality of one's own mind. There must be a thinking entity, in this case the self, for there to be a thought. And so on and so forth with that. So yes. And in that sort of sense, right? The mind of yourself, provides proof that you exist. And in that sort of sense, on a larger, more so macro scale, when it comes to the story of Moses and the burning bush, and talking to God by way of the angel of the Lord and all that sort of thing, that, God is going ahead and relaying that pretty much, in a sense, I think, therefore I am. You know what I mean? Or at least I make that connection, and I see correlation within it, and, just putting pieces together, connecting dots on the board, and seeing how things tie together. I leave it up to you to go ahead and take it further if you wish to, or ruminate on it for a bit. But back to the whole analogy that I was saying before in relation to the atom, right? Going ahead and getting to the segue, right? Getting to the segue of it. So yes, the ocean, the waters, the ever expansive nature of it, and all that sort of thing, of course, comprised of molecules, H2O, and then atoms, being the building blocks of such, that, all in all, we have this more so of a modern comprehension understanding that there is a interconnectedness throughout things, right? And within that interconnectedness, if we want to go ahead and use buzz terms and all of that, it being quantum entanglement, tied in with the whole notion of quantum mechanics and all of that sort of thing. The whole notion of interconnectedness, or things being tied to each other and one another, what have you, is something that I myself have touched upon in it was the Open Sorcery T.O.R. number 13, that was Energy Chords and the Connections Between Us All. I think that was the full title of it, but in any case, that right there, talking about how everything's interconnected, everything is, tied into one another. So even because we're very fixated on our physical existence and the sensory input of our five senses, that, if we are, even beyond that, right? Like, say, for example, right now as I'm speaking, I'm sitting down on a couch, and, just different furniture, what have you, is around me, right? But just because my body is not necessarily touching the furniture in the room all at once, like I'm sitting on the couch, but, my butt's connected to a damn seat. So there is that direct sort of material connection, but at the same time, atoms and molecules, because I have sat in other sorts of, furniture here, or I've touched different things, right? There is that non-local sort of connection, that is occurring between two objects that have gone ahead and touched each other, right? And, so for example, I'm looking at a lamp that is here, and turning on the lamp. Well, the lamp's not on currently, and, I haven't touched it in a while, but, there still is, me having interacted with it. Or you could say the television that is in front of me as I speak, or the walls that are surrounding this room, so on and so forth. Just because I'm not having an actual physical connection, there actually is connectivity, and obviously, in a larger sense, in a more so humanistic sense, the connections we have with people as well, whether it be physical, like we've held someone's hand, or we've gone ahead and given them a high five, or, we've done this, that, and the third, right? We have those connections with them, and, energetically, emotionally, so on and so forth, physically, whoever sort of extent. But even if we're not in the same physical location with them, we're going ahead and we are still connected to them. And let me actually go ahead and now take time and talk about the whole general notion of the quantum entanglement, so on and so forth, right? That it is by way of bending space and time, at least from the general notion of quantum mechanics, so have you, and quantum entanglement. You're bending space-time, and across vast distances, these connections still remain. Even if from a conscious, wearing blinders and having tunnel vision, day-to-day human perspective and perception that we are having currently, right? This is still something that is the case, something that whether we are aware of it or not by way of emotions or energetic sensitivity or not is still ongoing, right? And of course, talking about I am that I am, right? And all that sort of thing, you're going ahead and you are you are that, you are I think therefore I am, all these different things, right? And having that knowledge of thyself to whatever degree, but also the knowing that you are tied into everything else. And I am that I am. So let's go back to the whole modification of the phrase from the secret book and documentary, right? Adding that comma, right? You can go ahead and look at something and point at something and say, I am that I am. And that tie into, quantum entanglement and realizing that, oh yes, aside from just trying to visualize something, try to bring it into, manifestation or existence or what have you, that already you are that thing. You already are that. You already are what it is that you're envisioning or what you strive to do or what you're imagining or something you've interacted with beforehand or maybe something from the perspective of Eyes Twisted or from my fellow co-hosts, Devi and Lono, both of them. We are each other or we are things that we have interacted with or not, quote unquote, materially interacted with, and so on and so forth. I'm going ahead and I believe you get the general gist, even though I've said it several different ways by this point. But yes, in relation to that, a couple sort of things I wanted to bring to, the attention for you to look further into on your own time, what have you. Give a general synopsis, but, kind of give a couple directions to point in, a little bit of breadcrumbs and all of that. Is back in 2022, I should say. So at the time of this recording, it's 2023. And, pretty much either less than a year ago or, within the span of a year, the Nobel Prize for Physics, was given out for some experiments being conducted that went ahead and demonstrated the notion of quantum entanglement, and 3 different sorts of scientists going ahead and doing so. Once again, I would say, actually, I can go ahead and pull it up. I believe. And all that sort of thing. Just go ahead and find their names to give them the particular credit that they deserve. But it would take me a moment because I did not prepare it beforehand. So be it. So let me see. Nobel Prize 2022 in physics. And it'll take me a moment because I'm typing it with one finger. Alright, here we go. So I'm just going to the Nobel Prize page. So here we go. In terms of 3 scientists who went ahead and they split the prize 3 ways because they all had separate experiments that they ran in different locations across the world, as opposed to it being a direct collaboration. But shout out to Elaine Aspect, to John F. Clauser, and to Anton Zellinger. And truth be told, I will likely go ahead and provide a link to this in the description on the YouTube channel, for those interested in learning about what, the general gist of what the different experiments went ahead and pertained to. But yes, so all in all, there's this right here where they went ahead and demonstrated that and proved it for those who, were in doubt or, wanted that sort of experiment and validation for this sort of phenomenon, right? And just bolstering and deepening the nature of our comprehension of ourselves and our world around us, existence, non-existence, and all of that. And also another thing that I'll go ahead and point you guys to is, happening to read a little while back a write-up about Indra's net and astrology. This was in particular by William Keepin, and pretty much going ahead and looking into the Hindu deity Indra and the general concept and notion of Indra's net and the sort of interconnectivity between various things in that sort of lens. So, once again, Indra, a deity within Hinduism, and the notion, the concept of Indra's net, as well as that particular write-up in paper that I went ahead and referenced right there, which I can put in the description as well. But yes, so I kind of want to cap off me riffing on this subject a bit more so with just, a music, when I was going ahead and kind of putting the bullet points together and all that sort of thing, I also thought, well, you know what? This also reminds me of a good old song by Eminem, The Way I Am. And, the thing about that song is just generally about, people in the media, fans, what have you, going ahead and pointing the finger, being critical of Eminem and saying, oh, you're this, you're that, so on and so forth. And in that sort of sense, it's not particularly what I went ahead and touched upon in this monologue thus far of the interconnectedness or talking about, the self and or, all these different sorts of things, right? But it's more so of the notion of taking on the aspects or attributes that are, impressed upon you or attempted to be impressed upon you, and just throwing your hands up and saying, oh yeah, I am that. It's kind of like the notion of the chicken or the egg, right? Or a symbiotic sort of relationship, and that, you are affected by inputs and what you consume and all that sort of thing. And Eminem just throwing his hands up and oh, you say I'm a bad dude or I'm this or I'm that, okay, screw it, and all that sort of thing. And I likely will go ahead and speak about it a bit more so at some point as a recording and all of that. But that also ties into, you could say, entities, deities, and the sort of symbiotic nature and interaction that we as people have with them, or they have with us, and the ways that we impress upon each other. And of course, you could talk about human relationships, and how people interact and affecting each other, and to different various degrees and natures. But I got the general points I want to get across in talking about I am that I am. And once again, at some point, as a main topic or just, partially at other instances, I can speak more so about the whole, being impressionable and also impressing yourself on others, and, a deeper sort of sense of the song of, Eminem's The Way That I Am. Or at least, me at this point in my life putting these different pieces together. But all in all, I'll go ahead and end the monologue off, me riffing and all that sort of shit, and let y'all, ruminate on it. Let's have that food for thought or maybe just be like, oh, this motherfucker is done talking. As a momentary addendum, I happened to realize that there was a video I was going to watch to potentially spark some more ideas and how I go ahead and verbalize the concept of I am that I am, and just the general nature of I am in of itself. And that is by Bill Donahue, someone who, I have mentioned beforehand on channel, maybe a couple times thus far. And pretty much, that's sort of his speaking of the, understanding of how Jesus esoterically was trying to get across the notion of I am. And, I did not realize it until after I went ahead and recorded this, and I went ahead and just watched it now, and I'm like, all right, you know what? Very good points, very good way of verbalizing it. So I will put it in the description, a link to that on Bill Donahue's channel himself for, if you wish to go ahead and listen to it yourselves, feel free to go ahead and do so. But I just wanted to go ahead and add that tactus on at the end as well to go ahead and provide this additional, sort of breadcrumb for you to follow on your own spiritual path and journey, and knowing thyself better and understanding the fuller depth of I am. Finally. But in any case, this is Twisted with Open Sorcery, and stay frosty, niggas. Peace.